If you've been dreaming of Tuscany's rolling vineyards, the Swiss Alps' dramatic peaks, or the ancient soul of Rome, but the prices make you wince and the crowds make you reconsider, there's somewhere else. Somewhere that delivers the same magic, the same beauty, the same depth of culture and history, but remains refreshingly undiscovered. Georgia is where the Caucasus Mountains create landscapes that stop you in your tracks. Where wine culture predates every European region by millennia. Where hospitality isn't a service industry buzzword, it's a sacred tradition that turns strangers into family. And where your travel budget stretches 3, sometimes 4 times further than Western Europe. This is the Europe time forgot to ruin. The destination dupe that delivers authentic experiences, jaw-dropping beauty, and cultural depth that rivals, and often surpasses, its famous counterparts. We're just getting started. Subscribe to our channel, The Destination Dupe, to rediscover the world through a fresh lens with stories, perspectives, and culture, one journey at a time. Are you ready? Let's begin. Let's start where every Georgian journey begins. Tbilisi, a capital city that feels like it raided the architectural closets of a dozen different empires and somehow made it all work together. Tbilisi doesn't try to be cohesive. It's gloriously, defiantly eclectic. Persian-style sulfur bathhouses built in the 17th century sit beneath ultra-modern glass bridges. Crumbling Soviet blocks stand next to restored Art Nouveau mansions with their signature Tbilisi balconies. Those wooden latticed marvels that turn entire street facades into works of art. If Rome's appeal is layers of history visible everywhere you look, Tbilisi delivers the same experience with one crucial difference. You can actually enjoy it. No 7-hour lines for the Colosseum, no reservation systems for dinner, no tourist traps charging €8 for bottled water. Here's what €30, or about 100 Georgian lari, gets you in Tbilisi. A feast. And I don't mean a nice dinner. I mean a Georgian supra, a traditional feast with 9 or more courses. Khachapuri, the cheese-filled bread that's Georgia's national obsession, king kali. Soup dumplings the size of your fist. Grilled meats, eggplant rolls with walnut paste, fresh tomato and cucumber salad, and unlimited house wine plus dessert. Plus chacha, Georgia's potent grape brandy. Compare this to Rome, where that budget gets you a mediocre pizza and a beer, or Paris, where it barely covers the cover charge. But Tbilisi's real magic isn't the value, it's the vibe. This city has soul, the kind you find when a place hasn't been sanitized for tourists, when locals still outnumber visitors 10 to 1, when cafes are filled with Georgians arguing passionately about poetry and politics, not influencers staging content. Walk through the Abanotubani district where those sulfur baths have been healing and socializing locals for centuries. The smell of sulfur mixes with incense from nearby churches. Bathhouses with their distinctive domed roofs look like they were transplanted from Persia. A private bath experience costs about $15 to $20. In Budapest, a similar historical bath experience runs $50 to $70 on a good day. But Tbilisi isn't stuck in the past. The Peace Bridge glows with LED lights. The Fabrika district, an old Soviet sewing factory, has been transformed into a creative hub with hostels, cafes, and art studios. Young Georgians have embraced wine bars, specialty coffee, and contemporary art without abandoning their grandmother's recipes or their grandfather's hospitality traditions. This is a city in conversation with itself. Old and new, east and west, traditional and experimental. And unlike Prague or Barcelona or Lisbon, which had these same conversations 20 years ago before tourism changed them fundamentally, Tbilisi is having this moment now. You can still catch it before the secret gets out. Here's something most wine lovers don't know. While France, Italy, and Spain argue over who makes the world's best wine, Georgia has receipts showing they invented it, not metaphorically, literally. Archaeological evidence dates Georgian winemaking to 6000 BC. That's 8,000 years ago. The Georgian traditional winemaking method uses massive clay vessels called qvevri that are buried underground grapes, skins, stems, and all ferment together for months. The result is what's known as amber wine, or orange wine, a style that's having a moment in trendy wine bars from London to New York, often at $20 to $30 per glass. In Georgia, you can tour wineries where this ancient method has been perfected over millennia. Tastings typically cost $10 to $15 and include 6 to 8 wines plus snacks. Many family-run operations welcome visitors like family, because in Georgia, if you're drinking someone's wine, you are family. Compare this to Tuscany or Napa, where winery tours run $50 to $150. Reservations book out months in advance, and the experience often feels corporatized. In Bordeaux, chateau visits can cost over 100 euros and feel more like museum tours than living traditions. The Caucasus region, Georgia's premier wine country, sits about 90 minutes east of Tbilisi. The landscape delivers those same rolling vineyard vistas that make Tuscany famous, but with the dramatic Caucasus Mountains providing a backdrop that the Italian countryside simply can't match. The town of Svaneti calls itself the City of Love. It's perched on a hilltop, surrounded by 18th century defensive walls, with views that stretch across the Alazani Valley to the snow-capped Caucasus beyond. Cobblestone streets wind between pastel-colored houses with wooden balconies overflowing with flowers. It's the romantic hilltop town experience you'd get in San Gimignano or Montepulciano. But here, you can rent an entire guest house overlooking vineyards for $40 to $60 a night instead of $300. But wine in Georgia is never just about the wine. It's about the supra, the feast. Wine country supras are legendary. Your winery host becomes your tamada, toastmaster, and guides the feast through a series of elaborate toasts that weave together family, friendship, history, and philosophy. These aren't performative tourist experiences. These are real Georgian traditions being shared with outsiders who prove themselves worthy, usually by showing genuine interest and respect. Accept an invitation to a family's table, and you'll understand why Georgians say they're chosen by God to drink wine. It's not religion, it's culture, it's identity. It's how they process life itself. The UNESCO-recognized tradition of qvevri winemaking connects modern Georgians directly to their ancestors. When you drink from a 300-year-old qvevri at a family winery, you're not just tasting wine, you're tasting continuity, resilience, and pride. Provence and Tuscany are beautiful, but they're postcards. Georgia's wine country is still real life. The Caucasus Mountains don't apologize for anything. These peaks rise with an almost arrogant drama, some reaching over 5,000 meters, creating landscapes that regularly make even Alps veterans stop and stare. This is the Gergeti Trinity Church at 2,170 meters elevation. Behind it, Mount Kazbek rises to 5,047 meters, one of the highest peaks in the Caucasus. This 14th century church stands alone on its hilltop, stone against sky, seemingly positioned by someone who understood that some places are meant to make you feel small. The hike takes about 3 hours round trip from the town of Stepan Sminda, formerly known as Kazbegi. It's free. The views are infinite. On clear days, the combination of ancient architecture, mountain wilderness, and that particular quality of light you only get at high altitude creates moments that no photograph quite captures. Switzerland charges admission to this kind of beauty. Cable cars to viewpoints cost $50 to $100. Hotel rooms in mountain villages run $200 to $400. A meal with a view, easily $80 to $100. But if you want the real Swiss comparison, medieval mountain villages with defensive architecture and cultural traditions preserved for centuries, you need to travel to Svaneti. Svaneti is Georgia's most remote mountain region, accessed via a spectacularly scenic drive or a short flight from Tbilisi. This is where Georgia's famous defensive towers, koshkabi, stand like ancient sentinels in villages that time genuinely forgot. These towers date from the 9th to 13th centuries. Built from stone, standing 20 to 25 meters tall, they served as family refuges during invasions and avalanche shelters during brutal mountain winters. Each prominent family built their own tower. The result is villages like Ushguli and Mestia, where medieval towers define the skyline against a backdrop of peaks that rival anything in the Alps. Ushguli, at 2,200 meters elevation, is one of Europe's highest continuously inhabited settlements. It's also a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The village looks like a fantasy novel illustration: stone houses with towers, dirt roads, horses and cattle, smoke rising from chimneys, all surrounded by mountains that seem close enough to touch. But Svaneti's real treasure is cultural preservation. Svans have their own dialect, linguistically distinct enough to be almost unintelligible to other Georgians. They've maintained traditions, music, and recipes specific to mountain survival. The tower-building knowledge passed through families. Their approach to hospitality, even more intense than lowland Georgia, reflects centuries of depending on each other for survival. Georgia has also developed ski resorts that offer the alpine experience at a fraction of the cost. Gudari, on the Georgian Military Highway, and Mestia in Svaneti both provide modern lifts, varied terrain, and dramatic mountain skiing. Day passes cost around $25 to $35 compared to $70 to $120 in the Alps. Ski week packages with accommodation, lifts, and meals run $500 to $800 versus $2,000 to $4,000 in Switzerland or Austria. The Alps are magnificent, but they've been polished smooth by centuries of tourism. The Caucasus still has edges, still has spaces where nature hasn't been managed, where villages operate on their own rhythms, where the experience feels earned rather than packaged. Loving the journey so far? Subscribe to our channel to explore the world with us every week. Now, let's continue. In the 12th century, while European crusaders fought over Jerusalem, Georgian Queen Tamar created something remarkable here in southern Georgia. Vardzia, an entire monastery city carved into a vertical cliff face. Vardzia isn't ruins. It's a functional complex with over 6,000 individual cave dwellings connected by tunnels, 13 levels deep into the rock. There are churches, wine cellars, storage rooms, libraries, a throne room, and a sophisticated irrigation system that still works after 800 years. The main church preserves frescoes from the 12th century. Queen Tamar herself is painted on the wall, young and regal. The colors remain vivid: deep reds, rich blues, gold leaf accents. It's the kind of preserved medieval art that in Western Europe would require museum entry fees, limited viewing times, and probably a security guard reminding you not to breathe on anything. At Vardzia, entrance costs about 7 lari, roughly $2.50. You can spend hours wandering through tunnels, climbing between levels, imagining the monastery's heyday when 2,000 monks lived in this stone warren. The only requirement is respect. But Georgia's most spiritually powerful site might be David Gareha, a 6th century monastery complex built into caves in a semi-desert region on the border with Azerbaijan. The landscape here shocks visitors. Most expect Georgia to be all mountains and forests. David Gareha sits in a moonscape of eroded rock formations in shades of red, orange, and gold. The main monastery, Lavra, remains an active religious site. Monks in black robes still live in some caves, maintaining traditions from 1,500 years ago. But the true revelation requires a steep hike up to Udabno Monastery. The trail climbs to caves that preserve some of Georgia's finest medieval frescoes. Views from the top stretch across the border into Azerbaijan. A surreal experience of standing in Georgia while looking deep into another country's desert. Georgia's fortress architecture tells another story. The story of being positioned at the crossroads of empires. The Ananuri Fortress Complex, beautifully positioned on the Aragvi River, dates to the 17th century and served as the stronghold of local dukes who controlled this strategic section of the Georgian military highway. The fortress church features some of Georgia's finest stone carving. Grapevines, always grapes in Georgia, angels, crosses, and geometric patterns cover the exterior walls in intricate detail. It's the kind of craftsmanship that reminds you this small nation has been creating art for millennia. Monastery hopping could fill weeks in Georgia. Each major religious site tells stories of survival, faith, and cultural persistence through endless invasions, occupations, and attempts at erasure. You don't need to be religious to feel the weight of history in these spaces. Centuries of faith, struggle, and cultural survival are physically present. The stones remember. Most travelers discover Georgia's mountains and wine country, but miss entirely that this landlocked-seeming country has 310 kilometers of Black Sea coast. And it's nothing like you'd expect. Batumi, Georgia's second-largest city, feels like it accidentally wandered in from a different country. Ultra-modern architecture, including a building that looks like a DNA double helix and a massive moving sculpture of two lovers in eternal embrace, sits along a palm tree-lined boulevard that could be in Nice or Barcelona. But Batumi's real character is its unapologetic weirdness. Ottoman-era mosques stand near Orthodox churches near a synagogue. Soviet-era buildings decay gracefully next to gleaming casino hotels. The Alphabet Tower, a 130-meter structure designed to look like DNA made from Georgian letters, dominates the skyline with a rotating sphere restaurant at the top. The beaches are pebbly, not sand, typical for the eastern Black Sea, but the water is clean, the coast is clean, and in summer it's genuinely warm. Resort hotels offer all-inclusive packages for $50 to $100 per night during peak season, the equivalent on the Italian Riviera, $300 to $500 minimum. History enthusiasts shouldn't miss Gonio Fortress, a remarkably well-preserved Roman fort just south of Batumi. Built in the 1st century AD, it protected Rome's eastern frontier. The walls still stand, massive stone barriers that once guarded this strategic coastal position. North of Batumi, the coast becomes more dramatic. Mountains come right down to the sea. Small villages cling to slopes. The old port town of Poti offers a grittier, more authentic Black Sea experience. Fishing boats, Soviet-era apartments, locals who aren't performing for tourists. Kolkati National Park protects remnant wetlands from ancient Caucasus, the legendary kingdom from Greek mythology where Jason sought the Golden Fleece. These wetlands are critically important for migrating birds and preserve ecosystems that have disappeared elsewhere in Europe. Batumi at night transforms into something else entirely. The boulevard lights up. The moving statue of Ali and Nino continues its endless cycle of love and separation. Casinos attract visitors from neighboring Turkey, where gambling is illegal. Wine bars and seafood restaurants fill with locals and visitors sharing tables, because in Georgia, dining alone is nearly impossible. Georgia's coast isn't going to replace the Greek islands or the Amalfi Coast in your dreams, but it offers something they've long lost: authenticity, affordability, and the space to discover it on your own terms. Let's talk about the practical reality of traveling in Georgia. Because impressive landscapes and ancient culture mean nothing if the logistics are impossible, Georgia's infrastructure surprises most first-time visitors. The Tbilisi metro is clean, safe, and costs about 20 cents per ride. Trains run on Soviet-era schedules, but they run. Roads have improved dramatically in the past decade. Accommodation ranges from Soviet-era hotels being renovated with varying success to modern boutique hotels with international standards. Budget travelers can find private rooms for $15 to $20. Mid-range options run $40 to $70. Luxury properties exist in Tbilisi and Batumi for those wanting 5-star standards at 3-star prices, typically $100 to $150 for what would cost $400 plus in Western Europe. The food is genuinely world-class. Georgian cuisine deserves far more international recognition than it receives. It's not fusion or experimental. It's centuries-old recipes perfected through repetition and cultural pride. Khachapuri alone has at least 5 major regional variations. Ajarian khachapuri, shaped like a boat with egg and butter on top, is Instagram's favorite. Imaruli khachapuri, the classic round version, is daily comfort food. Magrillion adds cheese on top, too. Each region insists theirs is authentic. Khinkali, those oversized dumplings, require specific eating technique. Hold by the top knot, bite carefully to sip the broth, eat the rest, discard the top knot. Count your discarded top knots to track your total. Eating a dozen is considered normal, not impressive. But Georgia's food culture isn't really about individual dishes. It's about the supra, the feast as social ritual, emotional release, and cultural performance. Every major meal becomes a supra given the right combination of people and wine. The Tamada guides toast through family, friendship, ancestors, peace, and progressively more philosophical concepts. Everyone participates. Everyone drinks. Everyone leaves feeling more connected to humanity than when they arrived. The wine flows because Georgian supras operate on a fundamental principle. Wine is truth serum, social lubricant, and spiritual connector all at once. Safety is rarely an issue. Georgia ranks among Europe's safest countries. Violent crime is exceptionally rare. Petty theft exists but far less than major Western European cities. Women travel solo regularly. Families walk around Tbilisi at midnight. The main safety concern is probably Georgian drivers' aggressive interpretations of traffic laws. The currency is the Georgian lari, abbreviated GEL. Exchange rates fluctuate around 2.7 to 3 lari per US dollar. ATMs are everywhere in cities. Credit cards work in mid-range and upscale establishments, but bring cash for rural areas, small guest houses, and local restaurants. Timing matters. Late spring, May to June, and early fall, September to October, offer the best balance of weather, fewer tourists, and ideal conditions for both mountains and coast. Summer brings heat to lowlands but perfect conditions at altitude. Winter transforms the mountains into serious ski terrain but makes some areas inaccessible. Transportation strategy depends on your style. Renting a car provides maximum flexibility and costs $25 to $40 per day for decent vehicles. Driving is an adventure. Road conditions vary, signage is hit or miss, and Georgian driving culture takes getting used to, but having a car unlocks Georgia's remote corners. Alternatively, marshrutkas reach everywhere, but on Georgian schedules with Georgian levels of concern for passenger comfort, or hire drivers through guest houses, often the sweet spot of local knowledge, reasonable cost, and stress-free travel. Connectivity is excellent. 4G LTE covers most of the country. SIM cards with generous data packages cost about $10. Wi-Fi is standard in all accommodations. You can stay as connected or disconnected as you choose. But practical details miss what actually makes Georgia unforgettable. To understand this country, you need to understand Georgian character, something forged by geography, history, and a determination to survive without surrendering identity. Georgians maintained their language, their alphabet, their religion, their wine traditions, and their identity through endless occupations. When outsiders tried to erase Georgian culture, Georgians went underground, literally. They hid manuscripts into mountain monasteries. They kept teaching children the alphabet in secret. They preserved their polyphonic singing by singing softly where occupiers couldn't hear. This history created a particular Georgian mindset, fiercely proud but genuinely hospitable, deeply traditional but pragmatically adaptive, collectively traumatized by invasion but individually optimistic about the future. The super tradition embodies this complexity. Those elaborate toasts about friendship, peace, and family aren't just ritual, they're collective therapy. They're how a small nation that's been repeatedly invaded, occupied, and betrayed reminds itself that human connection transcends political borders, that friendship matters more than nationality, that sharing bread and wine creates bonds stronger than historical grievances. Sturmprobe, the Georgian word for guest, translates loosely as gift from God. This isn't hospitality industry marketing. This is deep cultural belief. Georgians genuinely believe that guests bring blessings, that mistreating a guest invites cosmic consequences, that opening your home and table to strangers is a moral obligation. Young Georgians navigate a fascinating tension. They're globally connected, educated, ambitious. They want international opportunities, modern infrastructure, European standards. But they're also intensely loyal to Georgian traditions, to family expectations, to cultural practices that define Georgian identity. This creates a Georgia in transition. Grandmother makes khachapuri in a mountain village using recipes unchanged for centuries, while her granddaughter runs a tech startup in Tbilisi. Both are authentically Georgian. Neither contradicts the other. Understanding Georgia means understanding that this country is still processing trauma. The Soviet occupation ended only 30 years ago. The 2008 war with Russia ended just 15 years ago. Many older Georgians remember rationing, occupation, fear. They remember when speaking Georgian could get you in trouble, when being openly religious was dangerous, when choosing the wrong political side had consequences. This makes Georgian pride particularly intense. The flag flies everywhere, the language is cherished, the culture is protected. Georgian identity isn't casual, it's essential, hard-won, non-negotiable. Georgia isn't easy to summarize. It's contradictory, complex, occasionally frustrating, often surprising. It doesn't perform for visitors. It doesn't simplify itself. It simply is. Georgia delivers everything travelers seek in Italy, Switzerland, or Provence. Dramatic landscapes, ancient culture, exceptional food, authentic experiences. But it delivers them without the crowds, without the commercialization, without the prices that make modern European travel increasingly prohibitive for average travelers. This is what travel used to feel like before every destination became optimized for tourism. When discovering a place meant actually discovering it. When locals outnumbered visitors. When authenticity wasn't marketing language but actual reality. Georgia offers space. Space to explore without reservations booked months ahead. Space to get lost without tourist police redirecting you. Space to connect with locals without performing for each other. Space to experience a culture that hasn't been packaged for Western consumption. And it offers all of this at prices that make extended travel possible. Where 1 week in Switzerland costs $3,000 to $4,000, you could spend a month in Georgia. where a weekend in Tuscany runs $1,500, you could explore Georgia's wine country for a week. But perhaps most importantly, Georgia rewards the traveler who approaches it with curiosity rather than expectations. Who understands that not everything needs to be polished or easy? Who values authenticity over convenience? Who recognizes that the most memorable travel experiences come from places still figuring out their relationship with tourism? This is the destination dupe that surpasses the original. The alternative that becomes the preference, the backup plan that becomes the first choice. This was the Destination Dupe. Subscribe to our channel, The Destination Dupe, to rediscover the world through a fresh lens with stories, perspectives, and culture. One journey at a time.